Cuando San Juan de Dios se presentó en
When St. John of God showed up in Valladolid in front of at the time, Prince Philip II, probably thanks to the diplomatic skills of Count of Tendilla, he addressed the prince and he said, "Sir, I normally call everyone brothers." To this expression, I adhere in my initial greetings. Welcome everyone, brothers, presidents and members of the cluster, the City Council of Madrid, members of the British Embassy, head of the Department of Research, Innovation and Entrepreneurship of the Foundation, and all dear friends. For the Foundation San John of God, or San Juan de Dios, it is a pleasure to welcome you in our home. After nearly 5 centuries of work and the passionate skills of taking care of the hospital order that we belong to, which is whose aim is to dream, to join wills, to create a network in the horizon of improving the quality of life of people. It is an essential element in the theological dimension of the charismas that this is not received as a proprietary there and to keep, but there's the nature to share it and share it generously. It would be nice to apply this to the knowledge and expertise that you have and that you're going to share in this session. You are here together to multiply in the horizon, and like we like to say in this home, we're going to share the care and the care with passion. I'm sure that I could welcome you without waiting to the end of this day, but because there's a lot of work that has already been done. Allow you to feel at home because it's the best definition of hospitality and the charisma of our hospital order. And the fact of sharing should be fruitful, and as the outcome of your work, someone and somewhere could face the future, probably from the fragility, but with a bigger smile. Thank you very much.
Bienvenidos y muchísimas gracias.
Welcome and thank you, everyone. And today we have a very interesting session, the first of many where we're going to have bilateral sessions with different countries. We are today going to start with the UK, then we will have France, who are also going to be with us, Qatar, Mexico, Emirates, etc., etc. Today, the star is the entrepreneur, and I therefore going to try and be very brief. I don't want to get any of their time because we have a format that requires respecting the time. Those of you who listen to us, those of you who see us through streaming, you know, we normally present 4 entrepreneurship projects. That means each of them has around 20 minutes. But today, as for the first time, we're going to present 10 projects will be presented today, both from the UK and Spain. These are entrepreneurship and innovative projects, all of them developed by entrepreneurs, and we are incredibly proud of them. Thank you once again to the Foundation. I don't have to say, after so many months of work, the surnames of everyone. So Gerardo, Gemma, who's not here with us, and very particularly Elena, thank you very much for always welcoming us in your home. Thank you very much to the British Embassy, to Jordi Laguarda, Sarah Cooley, who will be with us a little bit later, Shauna Brown and Alejandra, and the rest of the team. Thank you very much. These have been crazy weeks, so that we get a very good result today. Thank you again to the partners, to the colleagues and the friends. And before we move on to the brief presentation, as I said, I don't want to get anybody's time. I wanted to set out the reason why Madrid, why cluster, and why digital health. First of all, I'd like to give you some more quantitative data so that there in the presentation we provide more qualitative data. In Spain, we have, as you know, around 47 million inhabitants. In Spain, we have, and I don't know if you knew, about 175,000 companies related to the world of health, of which in Madrid, where we are, we have over 27,000 companies. I think this is quite relevant. This is quite a relevant data. Now, Madrid, and we're going to explain this several times throughout the session, is not just the gateway to Spain, but also very particularly the gateway to Iberoamerica. In Iberoamerica, they have 700 million inhabitants, pretty much, with 350,000 companies related to the world of health. So that said, some more quantitative data that I think is quite interesting. In Spain, the world of health represents around 1.5 trillion, say American trillions, not European trillions. In health, we have 8.4% of that total. We think that's a lot of money. We're talking about over 83 billion euros. And 70% of those are used by patients that we call long-term patients, the chronic patients, and very specifically adult patients. So as I said, a lot of inhabitants, a lot of health businesses, a lot of health businesses in Madrid, a lot of consumption of chronic expenditure for chronic patients. Let's see if I can show you the slides. Is this connected? Yes. Okay. Well, that said, then we want to give an answer as to why cluster, why we're talking about digital health, why we're talking about adults, long-term patients or chronic patients. And a little bit, if I may, we'll talk also about the ecosystem. What is a cluster? Well, ultimately, a cluster is a concentration of businesses that are interconnected in a specific location. As we said, in this case, the location is Madrid. And they allow for a virtual circle to be created within competitiveness, production, innovation, etc., etc. With regards to talent, we also have representatives of companies that are specialized in this field. I'm going to go very quickly through the slides. We'll talk a little bit also about the macro figures that were the focus of the discussion. And in Spain, and particularly in Madrid, we have about 650,000 adult people or elderly people. More than 60% of them have some kind of chronic disease. That justifies the strategic plan that we've set out from Madrid eHealth. In this category of plus 65, 20% of them have some kind of disability. From the pandemic, particularly the digitization model has represented a very important part of our lives and our businesses. As we always say, the patient is at the core of everything that we do. Innovation is what drives us. For the colleagues coming from the UK, we'll today like to welcome the team from the UK and very particularly in the Midlands. This is a small picture that we'd like to highlight so that you see not so much from the macroeconomic and economic point of view, but also from the point of view of leisure, tourism, social, and so on, the social aspects of Madrid. I hope you have some time to enjoy the city. And I said before that we talked about mainly quantitative figures, but now I'm going to tell you some very relevant figures that are more of a qualitative type. In Madrid, we have the hospital, Foundation Jiménez Díaz, recognized as the top hospital for the 4th and 5th consecutive year. The University Hospital La Paz, also top first in the world for children, and the Hospital of Navarra, who is also represented as a reference hospital in this case in the private sector. I don't know if you knew this as well, but I'd like to remind you that Madrid, Spain in particular, is the country with highest presence in a number of clinical trials, of which more than half of those clinical trials are performed in Madrid. And finally, at the level of innovation and technology, we are a center and a location from the technology point of view that is very relevant within Europe. At a European level, we rank 9th. We rank 8th in businesses that convey trust in the world of digital transformation, and we rank 6th as European city where there is the highest level of startups development. Madrid, again, as a smart city, does no need translation. It's just a smart city in Spanish as well. And as I said before, we rank privileged posts in terms of climate, culture, tourism, etc., etc. We also attract a lot of talent. We rank in top positions in terms of schools and universities worldwide. And there are some projects ongoing and planned that make Madrid a very attractive city in different fields, as you can see. Now I'll conclude with this slide. I had two more, but I didn't want to take anybody else's time, as I said before. So what we want and what we do, we always say the same. We are not Madrid Health. We don't want an incubator. We don't aim to be an incubator. But we always talk about matchmaking. That means we like to put together supply and demand. This is if there's a project that has a single, unique capacities in learning, machine learning, digital skills, we like to put those in contact with investors, partners, colleagues, so that they together can do business. So I'd just like to remind you today's format. We're going to present 4 projects from the UK, from the Midlands, and 6 projects from Spain, coming from Madrid. We also have, and this is very important, we have 10 minutes. We're going to be very strict with time. Every additional minute will be a minute that we take from our colleagues. So you're welcome, UK, welcome, Midlands region, you're all welcome. I see the great team in front of me. We're really curious to listen to you. And that's all from me. And we will now have 3 very interesting sessions. From the Midlands, you're going to tell us about opportunities and benefits from life sciences in Midlands for health businesses. You're going to tell us a little bit how the access to the NHS work, the UK NHS. And finally, you're going to tell us about testing and evaluating medical products. So you are going to tell us what the stakeholders have to do in order to register their products. Then we'll have a coffee break. Then we will move on to the companies. First, the UK guests, then the Spanish guests. And finally, we will close with the representatives of the Madrid City Council, with whom we're always work together. And so you're all welcome. Thank you very much. And we're starting now.
Este micrófono, ¿no? Muchas gracias, Carlos. Buenos días a todos.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Good morning, everyone.
In Spain. Soy el consejero de Comercio e Inversiones de la Embajada del Reino Unido en España. Muchas gracias a todos por estar hoy aquí.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being today.
Speech 50-50, which it means 50% in English, 50% in Spanish. I'm sorry for the translator, but I know you are an excellent professional and you will handle this. En primer lugar, my special Director of Innovation and Business Soul I have at the Fundación San Juan de Dios, and also my thanks to Carlos Díez, Madrid eHealth cluster, for working alongside the Department of Business and Trade colleagues team at the British Embassy to bring us all together today. I have 2 ideas to share with you this morning. The first one, I believe in the power of innovation to improve healthcare. What does it mean? La innovación no solo...
Well, innovation doesn't just make a health system to be more effective and efficient, but it actually results in a better care and for the patients. And that is why it becomes vital that the best of the UK to work with the best of Spain so that people have a happier life and a healthier life.
Yes, the best of British, quite like Birmingham and the Midlands, which has one of our largest medtech cluster with more than 1,000 businesses and a workforce of 25,000 people. And it comes my second idea. Today we have here a small representation of these experts, companies, in fields from data-driven healthcare to life sciences, who are all developing solutions to help diagnose diseases and provide patients with better treatments. Y han venido aquí.
And they are here to share synergies, to look for collaboration opportunities with the Spanish companies, with institutions, and with health providers.
This meeting to make the most of this and continue our work to build a brighter, healthier future for the people of Spain and the United Kingdom. Muchas gracias a todos por vuestra
Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention.
fantastic journey, and I encourage you to have a fruitful conversations and discussion today. Thank you.
Muy Muy bien, pues si os parece, entonces continuamos.
Okay, if you agree, we now continue with the UK team, the introduction of the Midlands Engine ecosystem. First of all, we're going to talk about the opportunities and benefits. Who's going to be the presenter? Okay. Anil Vaidia. Thank you very much.
Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anil Vaidia. I'm the life science specialist with an organization called the West Midlands Growth Company. We are an economic development agency, so that means our interest is to support companies that are from overseas countries to come and help set them up into the West Midlands. And I represent a 3-city region: Birmingham, which is the second largest city in the United Kingdom, Coventry, and Wolverhampton. So my presentation is just going to tell you a little bit about the West Midlands, the region I represent, but also about the opportunities that we have for life science companies there. As an organization, our first remit is to help support companies coming in, as I said. We also have interest in visitor attraction, so that's tourism, supporting getting large-scale property development in. So I'm currently working with a number of life science developers building property out within the West Midlands. And we also work with a number of regional businesses as well, supporting their expansion plans. We do this in a number of ways, the kind of role that we play in helping companies set up in the region. We provide companies with in-depth research, understanding about the ecosystem, introductions to the right type of clinicians, hospitals, academics, and companies within the West Midlands. And we also support companies in terms of identifying grant funding opportunities as well. And we work with a number of partners that are partners within the life sciences sector around the region as well. So just to give you a sense of the size of the region itself, we're just under a working population of just under 3 million people. We have an overall population of 5 million people. It's just under 5 million people. It's an extremely diverse population with probably something like 190 different countries represented within the region itself, which adds to its benefits in terms of clinical trials, and I'll touch on that a little bit later in my presentation. But we represent the second largest, biggest economy outside of London. So for those of you not familiar with the West Midlands and where we are in the UK, so we sit centrally in the United Kingdom. As the map represents there, we're about 1 hour, 20 minutes from London, for those of you familiar with the capital city. What's interesting is we're actually about a 4-hour drive from anywhere else within the UK. Now, that's quite an important factor for many companies working in life sciences, from those that are working with critical medication that need to move them around the country, to even something as, I was going to say as simple, as more complex during the COVID type period. A number of the tests for COVID tests were actually taken and managed within the West Midlands, principally because of the 4-hour time frame and getting tests from around the country into the central regional testing lab in Leamington Spa in the West Midlands. So let me tell you a little bit about the opportunities that exist within the life sciences space. Oops. So life sciences, as many of you are familiar with, is a very complex space. A number of different kind of sectors that are actually working in that one field. But where we see the opportunities for life science companies in the region is what we call the 4 Ds. So that's digital, data, diagnostics, and devices. Data, of course, underlies almost everything we do within life sciences these days. It applies to digital products, medical device products, and as well as diagnostics. So we have a number of offers around the digital space and around the other three other spaces. But overall, I like to think of data underlying every single sector of the life sciences itself. I've got a video here. I'm not sure if that's going to run. Oops.
The UK's hotspot for data-driven healthcare innovation. This is a region with huge opportunities for bench-to-bedside research and development. We have over 35 regional centres of clinical research excellence. Leading universities in the region are developing new applications in the healthcare space, from augmented reality to novel biomaterials. With our pioneering partnerships between academics and clinicians, we're at the cutting edge of medical technologies and data-driven healthcare.
That's just a 30-second clip of all the opportunities around the region. There is actually a longer version. I'm not going to play that for you, partly for the time, but also because not really relevant at this point in time. But this was something that was actually created during last year for the Commonwealth Games, which Birmingham hosted. So if I was a life science company, and I've set up 3 life science companies in the past, so I know the challenges. I'm also a medical engineer by background, so I understand how to take the development from early stage development all the way through to commercialization. So I do understand the challenges that you face. I think the first challenge, if you're looking at expanding internationally, has to be an understanding where is your talent going to come from, your workforce. And that's one of the areas where we feel that the West Midlands can actually help you. There are 9 leading universities around the region. 4 of those universities have medical schools, Aston, Birmingham, Warwick and Wolverhampton, and they produce just over 8,000, almost 7,500 graduates every year. There are also a number of students studying in the STEM subjects, just about 85,000. So if you're looking for identifying the right type of skill set, we can help you identify that right skill set and work with you to help in the recruitment process for those people. For the sake of time, I'm going to kind of speed through most of my other slides here. But the second point I'd like to bring up is actually on clinical trials. And I think your colleague also mentioned clinical trials with Madrid. The UK, the West Midlands is also one of those areas where you can carry out clinical trials. I know there's a number of regions around the UK that talk about that, and rightly so. But I think one of the opportunities for carrying out your trial work within the region is that actually just over 50% of clinical trials are carried out within the West Midlands, in the Midlands itself. And just over 52% of those trials are working in the advanced therapeutic areas. So if you're familiar with cell and gene therapy work, where you demand the manufacturing process and the testing process to be very close to the patient, the West Midlands, particularly Birmingham, is quite unique in its way in which it handles clinical trials for that particular sector of life sciences. I mentioned something like 190 different people from around the region, from different countries represented in the region. Now, if you think about that in terms of your clinical trial in your data set, it's quite a vibrant data set that you can actually tap into. Most clinical trials tend to focus on one ethnicity. But in this region, you actually have an opportunity to work with a trial group that is quite much more varied than anywhere else in the country itself. This trial group also works closely with areas such as trauma medicine at some of the hospitals within the region, and also work with the Defence and Security Accelerator as well that supports medical development. 2 of the assets I'm just going to talk about very quickly. One is an organisation called MD Tech. This is an organisation that sits within the public healthcare system, the NHS, within the within Birmingham, the University Hospital Birmingham, and is supported by the University of Birmingham itself. And this is for companies that are looking at trialing and testing out their actual products. So you might actually have a medical device or a diagnostic, but it's critical to understand the usability, how patients are going to actually go through the system in terms of testing and trialing and the acceptability by that person or that patient in the medical system. The university here, or MD Tech, actually has a simulation laboratory itself where they have a number of real-life opportunities for you to test out that particular products, anything from ambulance settings all the way through to operational theatres itself. I talked slightly about the trauma medicine side, so I'm going to skip that side because of time. And the last point I want to talk about is just about the data sets that exist within the region. I mentioned talking about the larger number of the diverse population in the region. One of the things that's quite unique within the West Midlands itself is it holds two unique data sets. One is called Insight. This is a patient clinical data set that is for acute medicine. Acute medicine is for conditions where you're unprepared or unplanned entry into a hospital system. So if you turn up to accident in emergency or emergency medicine, and you go through the whole flow of the process of being treated or managed by the clinicians there, this information is recorded under acute medical database here. This database is quite unique. It's over 20 years old. It's significant longevity, which means that they've actually tracked patients from birth all the way through to death. And it holds some very highly granular data, very detailed data, and also, two critical points, it's very clean, and the data is extremely diverse as well. We have a number of companies that are looking at tapping into that or accessing that data, from pharma companies to diagnostic companies. And for those of you that are here today that would like to understand more about how you can access clinical data sets from a commercial point of view, I'm very happy to have that conversation, explain more about what we do, how we can help you. So overall, I hope that gives you a very, very quick snapshot, a quick opportunity to understand what exists and what the strengths are within the West Midlands. I'm here for the rest of the day, so happy to answer questions. If I may leave you with one last thought, and that's if you are looking at coming into the UK and setting up, and you're thinking about the West Midlands, there is an opportunity for you to set up in what we call a soft landing space. So for certain types of companies, we're giving them an opportunity to set up free of charge for 9 months within one of the incubators within the region. And as part of that package, we're also supporting companies in terms of registration process, accountings, legal support, as well as recruitment. And the 9 months is just to give you an opportunity for a runway to try and test out where you feel that the West Midlands is actually an opportunity for you to set up and run your business. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. You staying here for how long?
All day.
All day. So I'm sure you will have many, many questions. Por cierto, yo no he dicho antes y querría decirlo.
I failed to say that before. I have 2 children studying in England, one of them in the Midlands. So I perfectly understand some of the things you've been explaining. My son is studying in Warwick. And he's happy to be there. Next talk, how to access the British health system. Chris Dyke.
The NHS system, including changes to regulation due to the Brexit and the overall NHS infrastructure within the UK regions and the academic health. Could you please give us, Chris, just one headlight on yourself and on your speech? Thank you.
Certainly. Hello there, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm Chris Dyke. I'm the Connectivity Manager at Medilink Midlands, and I'm also the Industrial Engagement Lead for the West Midlands AHSN. That's part of an NHS organisation. And I've been asked to fit a lot in a very short time, and I will try to do that within the time frame you've given me. So, without further ado, if I can move the... sorry. So, as my colleague just said, we're, we think, at the heart of the UK. So we cover not only the West Midlands, but the East Midlands. And this is just a reference diagram with some rings going out, which sort of indicates to the outer ring is around about a 2-hour drive. So, who and what we are. I work for an organisation called Medilink. We are the Life Science Cluster Support Organisation, a bit like your MAD organisation. So we cover all of life sciences and all of the companies that exist and belong in that space, whether they're a company just doing very basic materials and very specialist materials for pharmaceuticals, all the way through to end products and all those organisations that exist in between to facilitate that. We say what we do is we support the ABCDs, academics, so that's all of the universities across our 2 regions, all of the businesses that work in this space supporting those projects and work, and then all of the clinical entities, NHS as well as private healthcare, and lastly all of the various government departments such as DBT, which has brought us here today. So one of the things that I would like to, or was asked to talk about, is engagement with the NHS. So in the English regions there are 15 AHSNs, Academic Health Science Networks. They were created 7+ years ago by the government at the time to bring new innovation into the NHS to facilitate not only better healthcare, but also to save the NHS money. Like most healthcare systems, we're all struggling for money. So what they called health and wealth, but at the same time realising that that would support the health and wealth of new innovative companies in the healthcare sector. So we work with the West Midlands and the East Midlands AHSN. They have a range of services for those companies coming in. Our core activities, which you can see here, and I believe these slides are being circulated later on, are our Innovation Gateway, which allows companies to say what they've got, the benefits it delivers, and who it's aimed at. And we work with those companies to help them shape that pitch, if you like, the introduction into the NHS. And then my colleagues at the AHSN look at who are the best people to look at that innovation and hopefully look towards moving towards piloting and then eventually adopting it. In the bottom left-hand corner, we also do human factors, as my colleague was just saying, Anil. That's linked to MD Tech and another company you'll hear in a short while from Sarah Cheetah, who go through an evaluation and testing, real-world evaluation through to more specific testing and evaluation of clinical products. One of the areas that we're seeing a lot of activity in, obviously during COVID, the healthcare systems have been very, very stressed. So we're looking at lots of projects and technologies to facilitate better workforce flows and assistance. So, and that also flows through to the care homes, and we've met a number of care home or companies here in Madrid that are dealing in those sort of spaces, but also going through to how that reflects back into remote care, remote monitoring, and then obviously bolted into that, we're seeing lots of artificial intelligence and of course 5G to help with mobilization, whether it's between hospital care or community care, which of course there's a lot going on. Now, these are the key areas that our AHSN, each AHSN has different priorities. This is the West Midlands priorities. So going from mental health, which obviously we've seen a lot of growth in due to COVID, especially amongst our younger children, etc., through to the normal things, and we were talking about long-term conditions, obviously cardiovascular, and there's a lot of respiratory areas in our region, and a lot of this is all bolted around patient safety, and you can see the other sort of things, so chatbots coming in, so that how this technology is coming forward. So we all work under NHS England, and they are in the process of creating care board systems. And when you start looking at the interfacing all of the different entities, and I wouldn't expect anybody to read this, but it was just sort of showing the complexity. This is why we work with the AHSNs, because it becomes a lot simpler process. So of course we start with NHS England, which covers all of our National Trust hospitals, but there's also the Quality Care Commission, which looks after the care and quality, not only in the NHS, but also of private delivered healthcare. And then there's the regulatory bodies such as NICE, my mind's gone blank, but the National Institute of Clinical Excellence. So they actually facilitate, overseeing the pharmaceutical as well as the clinical delivery of items. And they also do an evaluation process to try and ensure that how things move into pathways and go through the system are appropriate. One of the biggest changes we're seeing within our clinical network is integrated care bodies and integrated care systems. That is where we're having our acute hospitals, our community care, social care, which used to be run by local authorities, and mental health, all coming under one control umbrella and one financial umbrella. So, and these entities at the bottom, you can see NHS trusts and other providers, all of that's coming under the management of our ICBs. And so that's one of the biggest organisations that we're now renegotiating, and all the structures are being rebuilt and reorganised to facilitate that. If you're looking to come to the to UK to sell into the NHS, please read these documents. They will give you the key pointers that the NHS is looking for, and hence should be built into your pitches, your development for them. As I said, I believe the organisation will circulate these slides to yourselves. On the right-hand side, you can see their key mission, which comes from the Life Science Vision, a 5-year forward plan. So dementia is another area that there's a lot of activity happening within the UK. And of course, since COVID, a lot of diagnostics and a lot of vaccines. So there's a lot of activity in that area. And so there's a lot of interest in working with people. And I think this is one of those sort of areas for lots of collaboration, because we are all facing these big issues in healthcare. And of course, long-term conditions, as we were saying, biology of aging. We were talking to people yesterday about that, and I know that's an area that you guys are working with, and respiratory diseases. This, I'm sure, and from the presentation last night when we went to the awards, we saw GSK, a very well-known British company, doing lots of really great work here in Spain around sustainability and net zero. Our NHS has set some very strong targets, and the next slide will show some of those. So, you know, it's not only changes to working practice, but the materials we're using, the manufacturing processes. And we've recently held a joint event in the Midlands with our aerospace and automotive industries, because we're all facing the same things to try and hit these net zero targets. So, unfortunately, it's gone off the slide, but you can sort of just see April 23, 24, that you have to show, as you're selling into the NHS, that you're reducing your carbon footprint, and then there's more actual dynamic aspects that you'll be putting into your elements for the NHS to be procuring your products. We knew you were speaking to the digital cluster when we came out, and thank you for the invite. It's very, very good of you, and we're pleased to be here. So, digital first is one of the NHS aims, and there's lots of activity. And again, we were talking to companies yesterday about interoperability. The companies we've met, you're doing a lot of the things already, and I'll pick up on some of those. So there is a slight exchange process and because of culture and language, but invariably the technology underlying should be A1. Smartphones apps, as you can see, is a big thing. Emergency responses is something we've thrown in. There's a lot of activity, just as a sort of an aside, around drones, and hence why we're working with the aerospace to deliver goods or to collect people from remote places. So, and I'm sure there's people working on similar things. But because of the need for engagement with people at home as opposed to keeping them in hospital, then remote monitoring and wearables are very key. So just a quick overview, opportunities, net zero, mental health, especially in young people, is a big area that we're working on, reducing waiting lists and reducing the pressure on our staff trying to deal with those. So workforce transformation, changes to pathways, medicines optimization, and I don't know if it's the same here, but it sort of moves into that sort of net zero. A lot of drugs are prescribed and not necessarily utilized, so how can we make that better? New treatments and therapies, and my colleague Anil was talking about advanced therapeutic materials, so stem cell stuff. There's a lot of activity in our region, and again, we're interested in people working in those spaces, whether that's in the academic space, clinical space, or actually in the manufacturing and production of such things. And then on the last part of this is the West Midlands and AHSN, and my colleague Joanne is here today, so she can answer any questions one might have about engaging with the AHSNs to enter into the NHS. One of the things I did see on there, we've got one of the largest 5G innovation zones in the whole of the UK. So there's a lot of activity going on in that space. Two other things that's sort of happening, and we often see government initiatives, and we've got two initiatives that's happening at the moment, well, three actually. Diatomic is one of them, which is looking at smart cities, and you mentioned smart cities earlier. This is a blend between smart cities and digitization and health, as well as clean tech, as you'll see on the slide. So we're very interested in having those conversations. There's a new digital health hub pilot going to be coming on board in April. And there's another slide, which I haven't got here with this slide deck, which is an innovation accelerator. And again, that's where the universities are going to be using their amazing skill sets and hopefully skill sets perhaps with your university hospitals, which you were mentioning earlier on, here in Madrid and perhaps wider parts of Spain, to engage and develop those things. Brexit, one of those topics I'm sure we all wish we didn't have to talk about. Most things are the same. It's just taking a bit longer. But as any of you in the medical sector know, going through the regulatory process is a bit of an uphill a struggle. We've moved from Medical Device Directive, MDD, to MDR. We've complicated stuff a little in the UK, but most of us are still moving towards European CE marking and MDR. So if you've done those sort of that journey and got those sort of thing in places, then invariably things should be relatively straightforward. Some of the things I know when we're speaking to digital companies and the ones we've spoken to yesterday, you've already done a HL7 or fire, you've already know about SNOMED CT, you've got that built into your products. If you're dealing with imaging, you've got DICOM, so those are standards across all of us, so the transfer should be relatively straightforward. Interoperability is one of the key thrusts. We've had lots of standalone systems, so hence why Fire and SNOMED are so key. There's some other standards there, ISO 27001 for information security, clinical risk management. All these sort of things come down to something which, especially in the app side, all companies in the UK will be going through what they call DTAC, the Digital Technology Evaluation process. Primarily, that's to ensure that your app is safe and how it handles data. So the patient data is, I must be getting close to my time. Unfortunately, there's so much to pack in, it's difficult. So please, go ahead. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, as you can see, post-market surveillance, etc. One of the key things that's caused us problems is all of you selling medical devices, you know you have an authorized rep. And you'll have an authorized rep here in Europe, and you've normally been able to sell to anywhere in the European area. Unfortunately, because of certain decisions that were made, if you're selling products into the UK, you will also need an authorised representative in the UK. And us as a trade organisation, industry support organisation, we will help those companies coming in to look for people to help them through that process. And that might be initially as a distributor as opposed to you setting up completely from scratch when you first come into the UK. So those are sort of things that you need to go through. And there's people we know, as Neil was sort of saying, as part of the soft landing, that can help through the legal processes of all those sort of elements to make sure your product is registered with the MHRA, the Medical Healthcare Regulatory Authority. So your company and the product will need to be registered with them. As such, so you would supply your standard CE stuff. CE certification. And that's the key things, I think, that one needs to consider. And obviously, as a business, there's lots of other things to take into account. Right, that's me. I have got one other slide, which I'm just going to flash at here. There's a whole pile of other slides, and I know we haven't got time, but I've brought them just in case there's questions later on. Excuse me. So, sorry, one of the key elements that companies that are developing new products are always looking for public funding. They're looking for an extra bit of money to help them perhaps over the first hurdle to bring their products to market. So if you're a UK registered business, so if you register your business in the UK and you start to have actual activity in the UK, then you can start applying for these types of funds. There's catalyst funds, which are very large mainstream funds, but the main ones that I would point anybody to are the SMART grants and Small Business Research Initiative. The Small Business Research Initiatives are absolutely brilliant funds, and we know a lot of UK companies and regional companies have gone for them. The reason being is that unlike a lot of public funds, it's 100% of the fund. It's not a percentage of the fund. So, excuse me. These are some of the topics that are currently on: net zero, stroke, respiratory and oncology. And it usually goes in 3 phases. So the first phase is, we've got a problem, do you think you've got an idea and how to solve it? Companies pitch for that, and if they like the notion of where you're going with that idea, you will get funded. And then there's stage gates for that 100% funding. But the second phase of that is to bring that product to a sort of a proof of concept, trials of such like. And then the third phase of that, of SBRI funding, is bringing it to market. So a nice long journey. And of course, there's a good percentage of money to be able to go towards that. There are other funds. NIHR run a very good scheme, and we're hoping it's going to be rerun in the new financial year, called FAST. So it's a very short response. You can pitch for all sorts of things, so even down to applying for money to help you with patents, testing, clinical trials, etc. And it's not a large amount of money, but it'll help you along that journey. And the response time is very quick on saying if you've got that money. So that's one that's been attracted a lot. I think that's the key elements I was asked to cover, so I hope I have. I'm here all day. My colleague Joanne and others are here, so if you have any questions, I'm sure we can answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. You can stay. Thank you so much, Chris. Very, very quickly. And by the way, very inspiring presentation, same as Anil's. Both of you, thank you so much. Now, very briefly, for those who are sitting here, those of us who are sitting here, and most importantly, for those who are remotely connected, we have dozens of questions. Okay. Now, very practical question for you, both of you, actually. So, whenever we want to register our company with you, either in the Midlands or in the UK, who should be talking to? Shall we be doing it, Jordi, through yourselves or through Shona or you, or how do we do it? Because I'm just thinking of one concrete case of a company who is thinking straight away of opening up their doors in the UK, potentially why not in the Midlands? So how should we do it? Very practical.
I would say...
Yes, go ahead. Thank you. Because we are impressed. I mean...
So in order to open up a company in the UK, it's actually quite a simple process, but it would be probably advisable to get an accountant or an organisation in the UK to help you with that. Probably correct in saying government's not able to actually direct it to help you open it, but they can direct signpost you. As an organisation within the West Midlands, we work with commercial partners that can help you actually register a company in the UK. So if you contact me, I can put you in contact with the right lawyers or the accountants to do that. Mm-hmm. For those of you that are interested in the soft landing space I spoke about earlier on, that's also one of the offers where our commercial partners will help you actually do that registration process for a company, and it's very quick and relatively cheap as well.
Is there a concrete number of biotechs, for instance, that are currently disembarking with you in the Midlands area? Have you got numbers? Setting up.
We have about we have about 700 companies in the medtech space within the West Midlands itself, okay. And as an organisation attracting companies in, we have a pipeline. So companies from very early stage to quite well-developed pharmaceuticals, US pharmaceutical companies that are looking at setting up within the region as well.
Congratulations. Thank you. So thank you very much. Yes, Shona.
Sure. Okay, and I was just going to say, part of the question while you're coming up on the stage, if you like, is that we're all very well connected. So please don't worry about who to speak to first, because we will sort that out. I will pass it over to Anil or whoever the most appropriate person is to handle the inquiry. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I'm Shona and I work at the Department for Business and Trade in the Embassy. And as a very first step, we would like you to contact us at the Embassy, and we will help you and put you in touch with the right people, engaging with people like Anil and the team in the Midlands. The service that we offer is free and confidential. I am not an expert like Anil or like Chris, but we do focus on healthcare and the life sciences sector. And I would like to think I've got a good overview of the system and opportunities there as well. So you'll hear from me later, a bit more later, but I'll pass back to Carlos just now.
So, Anil, now we have a target for you. We need to open up another 700. Sorry to give you the bad news.
That's a good news for us.
Anyways, thank you. So thank you so much, both of you. And now we hand it over to the next presenter. In this case, we are talking Sarah Bolton. Sarah Bolton se conecta en formato remoto.
She will be logging in remotely. Sarah is here to tell us about testing medical products for their use in the NHS. Are you out there, Sarah? Good morning, Sarah. Can you hear us?
Not yet, but we can see you.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good morning.
I've shared my slides. There we go.
Great.
That's perfect. Excellent. I can see what's going on now.
So,
okay.
Very briefly, Sarah, could you give us a little bit of info, just briefly, seconds, about you and about the project you are going to talk to? Just a very quick highlight.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And good morning, everybody. And sorry, I can't be in Spain because the weather in England's horrible. So my name is Sarah Bolton. I'm the business manager for eHeath. We sit within an NHS trust and we support any medtech developers to get the evidence needed for NHS adoption. So that's in a nutshell what we do. The kind of remit I've been given to talk about is how to sort of interact with the NHS and the wider network within the East Midlands. eHeath, we're part of clinical engineering based at Nottingham. eHeath stands for the Centre for Healthcare Equipment and Technology Adoption. We're part of clinical engineering. We're based at Nottingham University Hospital's NHS Trust, or NUH. It's a very large acute trust in the Midlands, and it's also a major trauma centre for the Midlands. We offer a lot of contract-based support work to anybody developing medtech. We deal with clinicians, with academics, with small SMEs, with large enterprises, anybody that's developing medtech and wants to get that medtech into the NHS. We can help to gather the evidence needed for NHS adoption. And because we sit within the NHS, we think that offers a very unique perspective to medtech developers on what the NHS actually wants and needs. We sit in clinical engineering, which look after something in the region of about 70,000 pieces of equipment. So we cover all medical devices and medical equipment, and that obviously includes software and apps. So, as I say, we sit within the NHS, but we're very outward industry facing, and we use a flexible resource model. So we build bespoke teams depending on what it is that the company or the project is actually looking for. And we offer a range of support services. They're sort of listed on the screen. I'm not going to go through all of them. But the most common thing that we deliver for clients is a device value proposition with health economic modelling. And that modelling can be early stage, sort of prospective modelling, where you don't actually have any data to support your claims. And part of that can be scoping out to say, well, we think we would make the cost effectiveness case in this way using a cost utility model or a cost minimisation model, and then also be able to tell you what sort of outcomes would inform that model so you can then build them into your clinical studies. And that we do a lot of that. We also work with NICE. So Dan Clark, who's the head of service for clinical engineering and set up eHeath, sat on the NICE MTAC, the Medical Technologies Advisory Committee, for about 10 years. And our one of our bank staff also works for NICE 2 days a week as a health tech analyst. So we've got good insight into how NICE operate, and one of the case studies that I'll go through later shows what we can do. We can also offer, we can sort of partner up with other local groups to deliver a range of services, and I'll come on to that in a minute. And one of the other key things that we do is medical device training. So we have a very strong clinical engineering department in Nottingham, and we do a lot of medical device training. So we can support companies with kind of competency statements to show that people are trained in that device, and train the trainer, setups. And that can be quite important in actually getting your device in the NHS as the NHS would use it. So as everybody, Chris and Anil, have both said, we're part of a very large, very cohesive network, medtech network. Anil and Chris largely sit sort of West Midlands. I very much sit in the East Midlands. And we have a very good medtech network. And as Chris said, it doesn't actually matter who you talk to, because we're very well connected and we will know who else to go to. You can sort of almost come to any one of us and we'll point you in the right direction. So there's a lot of space for clinical research. Anil's obviously covered the West Midlands. In the East Midlands, we've got Nottingham University Hospitals, which has got a very active research and innovation department doing research. And there's also the clinical trial support unit over at Derby Royal Hospital. There's also, that's the clinical work. Not all devices go down the clinical evaluation route. Some devices come under Article 61 of the MDR, and they can use simulated data. So we have the Trent Simulation and Clinical Skills Centre at NUH and also the Human Factors Research Group at the University of Nottingham. And we've done several projects with those groups to do some independent testing and evaluation in a simulated setting for a couple of companies. And as Chris already mentioned, funding. So we get involved in quite a bit of NIHR funded, so National Institute for Health Research. It's the research arm of the NHS. And they have a setup within the NIHR called the Research Design Service, or RDS. And that's a free to access service, and they help you build the submission to be as good as it can be. And the RDS, certainly in the East Midlands, is very successful. Out of 4 large kind of £1 million bids, 3 out of 4 got funded at the last round, which we were exceedingly happy with, obviously. And also NIHR funded is the Clinical Research Network. So they can, as the name suggests, help you with the clinical research. So they can help you sort out research nurses, specific research nurses, and help with the recruitment of patients into the trials. So aside from the evidence base, there's also a lot of life science support. Obviously, Chris is representing Midlands. Joe is representing the West Midlands AHSN. Cheetah, we personally deal with the East Midlands AHSN, but it's very similar. There is the Medical Technology Innovation Facility, and I know Robert Riesel is part of the delegation meeting, and that's a fantastic opportunity and kind of hub space where they also offer opportunities to do sort of low volume manufacturing and actual manufacturing of the medical devices. And that's also part of the MediCity, BioCity sort of incubators. And there's also the Centre for Healthcare Technology, which is a group in the University of Nottingham, which just encompasses anybody and everybody doing healthcare technology research. So if there's a particular kind of research area that maybe some clients want to sort of tap into, we need to know more about sensor technology, for example, we can reach out within the CHT and find academics working in that area. So in terms of what does the NHS actually want from medical device manufacturers? Well, obviously they have to be regulatory compliant. And as Chris has already sort of alluded to, in the UK, we're under the UK CA mark, which is the old directive. The rest of Europe is under the MDR for CE mark. And there have been delays to the transition time. So CE mark, I think, will still be acceptable for a few years more. We obviously also need to know that the device works. And this is where a lot of our work comes in, helping you to build that evidence base to persuade the NHS that your device does what you says it does, and then with the third point, that it can actually be deployed in the NHS. So we can look at patient pathways, we can also look at NHS workflows and help you to understand where your device would fit in to the particular workflows in the NHS. Of course, it's not just a single NHS. How devices are used in, a large acute trust could be very different to how they're used in a district general hospital. So again, understanding those sort of regional or local variations is also important. And of course, the bottom line is the NHS wants to know that it's going to save them money, or it won't cost any more than the existing options, and will still offer the same or improved patient benefit. And the health economic assessment is sort of the bottom line with the NHS. It's all about the cost, as you can imagine. So I'm just going to go through 3 quick case studies. So this one, it was a UK company with a home use device. And they were finding it very difficult to test in the NHS because it's a home use device. And as such, they decided to go down the route of simulated testing. And we work with the Trent Simulation Centre to provide some independent simulated testing and reporting. They were there for a couple of days. They tested a whole range of different scenarios and settings and sensitivities on the device. And the Sim Centre produced this sort of overall report on the device, which was then included in their clinical evaluation report and in their technical file as manufacturer-held data as part of their regulatory compliance requirements. And I know they're still going through that regulatory pathway. They have some issues around classification and, they're still sort of going through that process. But it was, worked out very well for them to have that simulated data because they just couldn't get the data in a home use setting. The second case study is where we really sort of pull everybody together from in the wider network. So it was a university-led project developing a prototype wound care device. All of the technology came out of the university and it's been developed without a commercial partner so far. We have provided the value proposition, we've scoped out the health economic modelling, what outcomes do we need to put into future clinical studies to be able to inform that model, what's the best route to adoption, what evidence base do you require, and we'll also be supporting them when they get to the commercial engagement part of the project. We need to know that the device does what it says on the tin before we then move on and engage a commercial partner. Clinical engineering within the Trust have supported the pre-compliance testing and NHS commissioning. So we haven't, because the device isn't quite at final stage yet, still very much a sort of a prototype. We've done the pre-compliance testing that would normally be done by a UCAS, a validated test house for CE mark certification. So we've been able to do that pre-compliance testing and provide a statement that it's safe for use in the NHS. And then the clinical investigation's not being done at Nottingham, it's actually being done at Derby in collaboration with their CTSU. And we had the study initiation meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we're hoping that the first patient into the study will be in the next day or two, which is hugely exciting. This project has ploughed on through COVID and everything else, and we are finally getting to put it into humans, which is great. And then the final case study, as I mentioned earlier, is a sort of an amalgamation of 4 different projects. 4 companies, international companies, so 2 from Denmark, 1 from Sweden, 1 from the States, all wanted to approach NICE for inclusion into their guidance. So NICE guidance appears to be very well accepted in Europe. And depending, it can be used as a very good sort of commercial promotional tool for you to have that NICE published document. So we supported them for the NICE submission portal, which at the time was the Health Tech Connect portal. Now it's the NHS Innovation Service portal, but it's very similar. So we took them through that process, helped them with the literature searching to identify all of the literature that they needed to submit through the portal. They went through topic selection and we helped them with the company submission of evidence documents. It's depending on what route you go down. So it could be a medtech innovation briefing, which is a kind of smaller, shorter, just reflection of data document, or a bigger into guidance document. We also help them with the health economic modelling. We're very familiar with the NICE template for health economic modelling, and we can generate those from scratch or help craft anything that the company have done into the NICE model. We provided overall support and liaison with NICE and general support, when NICE asks for feedback documents or other comments, we help them understand how NICE want to see that information. As I said, both Dan and Lizzie, who work for Cheetah, both also work for NICE. So that is the end of my presentation. I'll say thank you. I'm not sure when we're doing questions. Obviously, I'm not there all day, but any of the guys, Chris, or Joe, or any of the guys will be able to pass on my details if you want to make any inquiries. So thank you very much.
So Sarah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Just three quick points. Number one, very inspiring, same as Chris and Anil, so thank you for that. Second, quickly, hope you will make it next time face to face. So you will come over, and also we will come and visit you guys both in the East and West Midlands. And thirdly, as you were pointing out, we do have questions. We do have questions here. So, Shona, I think you have 3 to get started. I have 2, but maybe you can. So, same as before. Any questions for people who would like to test and evaluate medical products with you? Shall we circle with you, Shona? Should we contact her? Shall we go first in first place to you, or?
It's always very useful to copy the embassy, to consult the embassy.
Make it through yourselves in first instance.
The right people receive the questions.
Okay. Second, in terms of numbers, I was asking the same question to your friends. So, how many, or ballpark numbers, how many registrations do you make in a year, per year, roughly?
In terms of registrations, I mean, we tend to deal very much with sort of local companies, but we do get international interest. I think to date we've supported about 70 different projects. We've been going for about 7 years now.
Wow.
So yeah, we get through quite a few.
From everywhere, all over the world.
Well, yes. So quite a few in Europe. We've had one in America, but a lot very local based, particularly with the universities, but we don't put any boundaries on the geography.
Excellent. So congratulations. You don't get bored. You don't get bored.
Definitely not.
Not at all.
No.
So, Shona, I hand it over to you. Maybe you have, and while you ask the questions, we have also with us Faustino Diaz. I'll introduce you to him, to you guys properly. He is the Deputy General Manager for Investments for the Madrid City Council, Ayuntamiento de Madrid. He will be presenting in a few minutes what we do. We do lots of things. So now we know what we have to do when it comes to registering in the Midlands or in the UK. I think it's good, likewise, that you guys know what is it that you have to do, or we can offer you when it comes to companies from the UK, for instance, registering or settling yourselves in Madrid. So, Shona, excuse me, all yours. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Before I have a few questions that I want to ask the delegation from the Midlands, does anybody in the audience want to ask any? Okay, I'll kick off, and then maybe somebody else will want to say something afterwards. So my first question is for Neil. I'm trying to see where Neil is just now. So, Anil, would you be able to give us a few examples of foreign companies that have benefited from setting up in the Midlands? I know that a lot of information is confidential, but there's perhaps some kind of more public information that could be shared, and how the companies have grown potentially within the UK from the Midlands. Okay.
Thank you, Shona. Thank you for the question. I'll answer the questions with 2 examples. One is an example of where we haven't been successful, and one where we have been successful. In the unsuccessful case, we had engagement with the pharmaceutical company Moderna. So as you're familiar with, Moderna is the company that developed the vaccine for COVID. And there's a long, complicated process in the way in which large companies like that engage with an organization such as ours. But the way in which, once we finally managed to get engagement and talking to them, they were very keen on understanding what the academic opportunities and the clinical opportunities within the region. So we were able to support their conversations with the various universities in the region in terms of understanding the new type of technologies in which they can engage with, the clinical trials that they can engage with, and also the life science infrastructure. So there's some new buildings being developed within the West Midlands, and that was an opportunity for us to work with them on understanding that proposition. Unfortunately, we didn't win that case, but it was an example of where a large company was interested in talking to us about the possibility of setting up within our region. The second case is where we have been successful, a much smaller company, an SME company, working in the diagnostics space. So they have diagnostics labs, and they're a Polish company. They wanted to set up within the region, principally because they wanted access to one of the databases that I talked about earlier on, which was a database called Pioneer, that was focused on acute care. And they have an interest in using that database to support the diagnostics or the diagnosis of new patients coming in through their labs. And they were then going to combine that with access to a third database, which I didn't mention, and that was in the genomic space. So the West Midlands also holds the largest genomic records within the country. So just two examples. We have other conversations obviously ongoing that are pretty much more confidential, but I hope that gives you an understanding of the reasons why some companies are interested in talking to us.
Thank you very much. So, Chris, I now have a question for you. It's an easy one, so don't worry. So what do you think the biggest challenges are in the NHS at the moment, and how do you perceive the use of digital technologies at the moment? Is it a difficult path? Is there lots of adoption? What are we seeing?
Lots of questions in one space. Well, I think I covered some of them, which is obviously the stress and strain that our NHS is dealing with. And one of the biggest areas that we're seeing lots of people coming with solutions is in the digitisation of those solutions. And that, because of the ICBs, there's the change to pathways and trying to keep people more at home. So those are key areas that we're seeing. With regards to introduction, as Sarah was saying, one of the key elements, a number of key elements, is good evidence that it does what it says on the tin, which comes from an advert we use in the UK. So, you have absolutely spot on information that your product will actually deliver the health benefits, etc., but also mixed with the health economics. And that is another key element that our NHS is looking for. Can it actually deliver the outcomes, the health outcomes and benefits, and also save money? The nice thing about ICBs, very often when companies were trying to sell products into the NHS, the entity that was procuring the technology would look at what it was saving them, and not necessarily, and we were talking to a surgical company recently, not what it saved when that person got back into the community because they weren't on a drug regime or something else. Now with ICBs, because they've got this much wider remit at looking at the whole of their health economics, so that companies can actually say, this is an expensive operation, it's a bit more expensive than other operations, but the person is getting better, they're going to be out of the hospital quicker, and therefore their drug regime, their elements with their drugs, etc., will be reduced, or they will not be on a drug regime. So hence we're having a much more longitudinal look at the health economics that's going on. So those are two things. I think I've answered your questions. If there's any others, please, more than happy to try.
Thank you very much. Now, a part of the work that we do in the embassy is we also help British companies export to other countries, for example, Spain. And today I'm going to plant a question on Ian, and I hope he doesn't mind. We have a delegation from the Midlands of companies that are interested in selling their or finding partners here in Spain. Now, once a company sets up in the UK, whether you're a Spanish company, an American company, a German company, whatever you might come from, you then become a British company as well. And I wondered whether Ian would be able to say a few words on the services that we can offer as internationalisation to support companies use the UK as a kind of stepping stone, if you like, to other markets. Would you mind, Ian?
Thank you. Good morning, buenos tardes, buenos dias. My name is Ian Harrison. I work for the Department for Business and Trade in the Midlands. So we have the Department for Business and Trade here in Madrid, and we're also in 108 countries across the world in 190 locations. And my role and responsibility is to look at companies in the UK or in the Midlands that export across the world. So looking at new opportunities, new markets, and helping them to internationalise. In terms of that support, Shauna's quite right. If you are a company registered in the UK, then you have access to that support. So not only UK companies, but foreign-owned companies in the UK can then utilise our services and our global network. So as a department, we are 7,000 people across the world, and we split the world into 9 regions. We work with companies in the UK to help them build their capacity to trade overseas. And we do that in a number of ways. There is an online service, which is about information, about guidance, about insight, tax regimes, customs, market access barriers, the sorts of things you need to know in order to sort of start your journey. We then move into a more intensive process where we do a whole series of events which are made around raising awareness of different marketplaces and how they access. So we may do Southern Europe, for example, where we do Madrid, we do Spain, Italy, Portugal, and so on, or other parts of the world. And then we go into a more intensive service where we offer sort of direct one-to-one advice to companies to help them structure their thinking, because the world, by definition, is a very, very big place, as I'm sure you're all aware, and there can be a lot of abortive work that companies do that's very time-consuming and very costly. So what we try to do is to help to minimise that, to help the company focus on what is their unique competitive advantage, what are their unique selling points, and actually how relevant the marketplace is to that company. It may be they're reacting to an opportunity rather than having a strategic plan to grow their business globally. In terms of this sector and just linking things together, we have a number of advisors. We have 55 advisors across the Midlands, and there are different parts of the country as well. And I am lucky enough to have a specialist in this sector who's with me today, who's going to ask her to stand up. Louise, do you want to stand up? I always ask her to do this. Louise is our healthcare and life sciences specialist, and her role is specifically across the Midlands is to make sure that we bring all of our pooled and accumulated knowledge to focus on those businesses in the UK, in the Midlands, that have the ability to internationalise. And then in terms of Europe, the other bit that we have as part of the team, and somebody else as part of my team is going to stand up, is Lubna Chung, who is based in Paris, but Lubna is my overseas colleague who works across Southern Europe to help look for opportunities from Southern Europe for our businesses in the Midlands. So we have an interconnected network. We have Louise, we have Lubna, and we have the embassy, and we connect all our services together. So if you're ever in doubt of where to go, just talk to DBT either here in Spain or in the UK in the Midlands, and then we can make sure that we can help you. Does that answer your question?
Thank you very much. I have no further questions. So I don't know whether anybody else. I'll pass to you.
Thank you so much. No, I don't need. I have this. Thank you. So Faustino, we have the pleasure of having with us today Faustino Díaz, as I said, Deputy General Manager for the Investments, Ayuntamiento de Madrid, Madrid City Council. He's going to explain in detail to us all of the many things that we do, that you do for companies.
Thank you.
It's all yours.
Not in so much detail, because I have to tell you that I forgot my PowerPoint presentation at home, so it will be very brief indeed. So the thing is that it is my pleasure welcoming you in Madrid in this beautiful spring day that we have prepared for you. It's going to be 25 degrees today, so enjoy if you have the time. We are near the Bernabeu, that, by the way, is going to be reopened the 23rd of December. So you are invited to go there if you like soccer, that I guess. So the other thing is that I wanted to congratulate the organizers, starting with the British Embassy, the Midlands Bureau for Promotion, International Promotion. You are doing very well. Thank you. We have to keep talking all the time. The Fundación San Juan de Dios that is hosting us, and then, least but not last, of course, the cluster of eHealth that is in Madrid and is strongly supported by our local council. What do I have to tell you? So a couple of things. Madrid is plenty of two important things: infrastructure, transport, communications, digital service, whatever. They are all of them state of the art, and some of them, like the tube, leading in the world. And the second, human resources. There's plenty of human resources. To put into perspective, Madrid, compared to the Midlands area, is a little bit bigger. It's about 7 million people. And the health system is very well developed and other things. But we have more than 20 universities. So it's plenty of people studying engineering or medicine or anything related to the eHealth. So use them. Your country is using them. I think you've got a good experience, but we can share also experiences in work in the professional part and the business, I mean. So the other thing I wanted to tell you is that we are talking about investment. This is important. But there are two things to consider. We see ourselves in Madrid as a bridge. It has already been said, a bridge between Latin America and Europe. But after the Brexit, we consider ourselves also a bridge for Britain to knock into the door of Europe. So we are prepared, we are excited about the possibility of having partnerships and association with British companies, especially in these fields as the eHealth that have so good perspective of growth. And we can, the part of the bridge we can offer you is a part of technology in a market of 47 million, is the language. Because Latin America has, I don't remember, I think 450 million Spanish speakers. So most of the services are related to language. So take advantage of it. Use Spain, use Madrid, or work together in this field. And yeah, to end my speech, I thank you very much. We do share this soft landing program. You are most welcome. We'll go back to Great Britain. We just opened an office last November in London. We are going to go back for many times, but you are most welcome in our offices. We have a free service co-working system that allows you to stay with us and get in touch with the ecosystem, with the cluster of the health and other clusters like artificial intelligence or cybersecurity or whatever you are related with. And I promise to give you the best possible deal. So thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Faustino. Excellent. So we always run late, so not today. Today we have plenty of time. So my sugerencia para todos vosotros, si os parece bien.
My suggestion to all is that since we've actually gained half an hour.
Today is the entrepreneur. Why don't we go and have a coffee? So we keep this 25-minute rank or time for us in favor of our entrepreneurs. So we give it to them. And then we start talking. Thank you, Faustino. Thank you for your time. Thank you, all of you guys who are here sitting with us. All of you who are not sitting with us but are sitting home or sitting at your offices. Thank you so much.